programming languages, specifically in Java. A loop is when you go around and do the same thing again, right? So when you go full circle on something. Now, loops in programming languages are what helps us do repetitive tasks, tasks that we need to do over and over again. So we have our task, and our task is a simple one. Our task will be to actually ask for your name, for a first name and a last name, and then display the name with last name, comma, first name. Okay? So we'll create a little program. And this is JGraph, so you can use whatever you want, but I'm going to create a new Java file. You always do this, so public class, and then we're going to name our program. So let's name it loop, open curly braces, close curly braces. You can open the curly braces right next to that, or if it's clearer for you, we can open them down here. Then that's the name of your class, or as far as we know yet, it's your program. Then we need to create a public static void main string those things, args, again open and close, and we're ready to program. This is the space where our programs actually live. Okay, this is kind of like the name of our program, and this tells the Java virtual machine, or the thing that executes our programs, that our programs are going to live within these curly braces. All right, so let's go back to loops. Remember, we're going to ask someone's first name and last name, and we're going to just display it last name, comma, first name. So let's do that first. Let's do that first thing. So in order to ask somebody's name, we need to import java.util.scanner, as we've seen in other video lectures. The scanner will allow us to capture whatever people type on their keyboards. So I'm going to create a scanner object, a scanner variable called keyboard, or keyb, equals new scanner system.in. That is going to contain our scanner. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say system.out.println first name. So I can enter my first name. Then I'm going to say whatever you type on the keyboard, right? I'm going to store in a variable called first name. Now, because it's a name, basically it's a word, it's going to be of the type string. So string fname, for example, will be equals to keyboard dot next line. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is whatever you read on the keyboard, that whole line, put it in fname, and then I'm going to ask for system.out.println last name, and I'm going to store this in a variable called lname keyboard.next line. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the first name, print last comma first. Okay, so I will do system.out.println out. Println lname plus the little comma and a space fname. So this is a little task that I'm going to do. I'm going to compile it just to make sure that there are no errors. I'm saving the file. I'll compile it. Make sure there are no errors. If there's some errors, I will fix them. No errors, that's good. I'm going to run this program now. So my first name, John, last name, Doe, and then it'll print Doe, comma, John. Okay? This is what I want to do. Now, I want to create a whole list of these things. I want to ask this over and over and over again. Okay? So here's how loops work. You want to ask this. You can say, well, when am I going to stop asking these questions? Well, perhaps when I have 10 names. Perhaps I will never stop asking these questions. I need a condition on which I will stop asking these things. So the format for this is, I'm going to indent this a little bit, this is just for aesthetic purposes of what I'm going to do next. Okay. So one way to do loops is to say while and then some condition goes here. While some condition holds true, I will do this. Okay? While some condition holds true, I will do this whole thing. Now, what is the repetitive part here? The repetitive part is not creating the scanner. That's not repetitive. We can create just one scanner and use it all the time. The repetitive part is always ask for the first name and last name and printing them. So because this is not part of the repetitive part of our program, I'm going to take it outside of the loop, as we call it, of the while block. Okay, so while some condition holds true, I'm going to execute this block of code every time. So for example, let's think, how about I will run this program until I've done it 10 times. Okay? So what one could do here is to say, well, I'm going to have a little variable to help me count how many times I asked this. So I'm going to have int count equals 0, and then every time I do this, I'm going to increment this count. I'm going to say count plus plus. This increments the count by 1. So if it starts at 0, the first time it goes in, it counts 1. The second time it counts to 2, and so on and so forth. So I will do this while count. I'm going to start count at 1. So I'll do this while count is less or equal than 10. So I'm going to do this 10 times. Well, let's see if this works. Let's compile this and run it. First name, John. Second name, Doe. Prints John Doe. Asks me for a first name. Jane Johnson. It'll print Jane Johnson. First name, Luke Skywalker. It'll print Skywalker Luke. And then first name, it's asking me again for a first name, right? So, I don't know. Then it prints another first name. So I don't know how many first names I have so far, but I'll keep on entering them until they're 10, right? So this is like third or fourth. Then Jack Sparrow, Sparrow Jack. First name will be Kent. Whoops, sorry. Clark. Here the last name is Clark, so you're going to see Clark, comma Kent. Then first name Lewis, last name Lane, Lane Lewis. First name Peter, last name Parker. As you can see, I'm picking movie characters here. First name James Bond, so James Bond. First name Fiona Jackson, so Jackson Fiona. That was 10 names, and then the game is the loop is complete. So if I just look at this, those were 10 names. You can count them as I scroll them. Those were 10 names that it asked me for. Okay, so this is how we do a loop. We have a while instruction here. We have some condition that if it's true, so if as long as count is less or equal than 10, then this loop executes. Okay? Remember that if you're doing something with count, remember to increment this counter so it actually ends. You can end on anything. Okay? So we'll take a look at that later when we look at scope of variables and other things. But this is a while loop. There is another kind of loop. For example, if count here is 11, if I initialize this to 11, it'll say count equals 11. Well, so it'll first ask, is count less or equal than 10? No, right? Because count is 11, so it's greater than 10. Well, so if this is false, then the while loop doesn't get executed. So we can compile this and run it, and you see that it ran. Nothing happened. I didn't get a prompt because this condition here, count was not less or equal than 10, so the while loop didn't execute. Now, there is a way in which I can execute this thing the first time and then ask whether the condition is true or not. Okay? And that is with a do while loop. So the syntax for this is to say do the following, okay? While count is less or equal than 10. Okay? This is the do while loop. I can compile this and run it. You know, count is 11. So what it does is it goes here, it does this, and then it checks, it says, I'm going to do it again as long as count is less or equal than 10. So this hopefully will be executed only once because count is 11. It will execute this, and then it will increment count, which will leave count as 12 with the value 12 in it. And then it'll say, well, is count less or equal than 10? No, count will be 12. Therefore, it exits the loop. Okay, so this is the do while. Do this thing the first time, and then keep doing it as long as count is equal or less or equal than 10. That's what this says. So let's compile and run it. First name, John Doe, and then it prints Don Joe, and it doesn't print anything else because count now is 12. If we have count, say, at 9, okay, and compile, this will print two numbers. The first one with 9, right? Then count is 10, the second one with 10, and then it'll exit. So first name, John Doe, and then first name, Barack Obama. Obama Barack, right? So I misspelled this, but that's okay. So this is the do while loop. And then there's a third kind of loop, okay, which is the for loop. The for loop is just like the while loop, but it works on counters. Oh, well, it's mostly done to work on counters. This is what a for loop looks like. You create a for loop, no while here. You create a for loop, you start with the instruction for, and then you create this. You don't even need this counter variable anymore, nor this count plus plus. The for loop will take care of this, and we'll see how. We'll see. For, we need a counter. Int counter equals 0, semicolon. We will create a counter equals 0. Then we'll execute this block until some ending condition, and that ending condition will be count is less or equal than, say, 3. I don't want to do 10 names, that's why. Less or equal than 3. Let's start with count is 1. Count 1, count less or equal than 3. And after I execute this, what should I do? I should increment count. Count plus plus. It's the same idea as the while loop. Okay, only that I do it all in one line. And this will go from 1 to 3, incrementing count, and it will execute this basically 3 times. So we can compile this and run it. Whoops. Oh, it's counter, not count. I'm sorry. Count. There you go. Compile. So I create this variable count. I check to see whether it's less or equal than 3, and if it's less or equal than 3, I will execute this. After I execute the block, I will increment count by 1 in this case. Okay? So let's run it. First name, John Doe. First name, Barack Obama. Prints Obama Barack. And last name, and first name here, Luke Skywalker. And it'll print Skywalker Luke, and it'll exit. Okay, so we did this 3 times. For loops are really good when we know how many times we want to do things. While loops are really good also when we know how many times we want to do them, but also they're very good because if we want a different terminating condition, not only with counter, but say if the first name is Obama, we'll terminate or something. And then do while loops are very nice when we want to do one thing always the first time, but then limit the subsequent number of times that we want to do this. We'll see a lot of more of these examples in class.